Hey guys, welcome to this week's free YouTube lesson. This week's backing track is a really good example of how you can take something that's a little bit more involved harmonically and play some really simple stuff at it and make it sound really cool. So the advantage of this week's lesson is that it's going to be quite applicable to guys coming from beginner level all the way through to advanced because you can make as much as you want out of it essentially. So let's go through the chord progression of the backing track then. It's pretty basic. We've got 3 bars of A Dorian, and specifically I think we had 1 bar of an A minor 7 chord, and we had 1 bar of an A minor 6 chord, and then another bar of an A minor 7 chord. And then on the 4th bar we've got an E dominant 7 chord, which takes us back round to the A minor at the beginning. Now specifically it's an E altered dominant 7 chord. If you don't know what an altered dominant 7 chord is, don't worry about it. You're not going to need to know because we're going to approach it in a slightly different way. If you do know, then great, fantastic. So the idea of today's lesson is that we're going to take really basic major triads, just major triads, and play them over the top of these chords to give the sound of the scales that we're wanting to play. So let's just run through the intervals first, and then I'll just show you how it all works on the guitar. So over any type of Dorian tonality, if you want to use just major triads, that's just major chords, you can play a major triad which is a minor 3rd above and a perfect 4th above. So in this case we've got an A Dorian type of tonality, and we can play a C major triad and a D major triad. Over the top of all the A Dorian section, you can play a C major triad and a D major triad, and you'll get notes that complement A Dorian really well. In the last bar then we've got this E altered dominant chord, and over the top of an altered dominant 7 chord you can play again 2 major triads, one based off the flat 5, which in this case is a B flat, and one based off the raised 5, or the flat 13 if you will, which in this case would be a C. So those of you who were paying attention earlier on probably remember that we had a C for the A Dorian and also a C for the E7 altered, which means that really all we're using is 3 triads through this whole backing track. So we're going to be using a C triad and a D triad over any of the A Dorian section, and then over the very last bar where it's E7 altered, we're going to be playing either a C major triad or a B flat major triad. So this is where we can kind of divide off into different areas of ability level. For you guys who are more advanced or intermediate, you probably know quite a lot about how to play triads across the fretboard. So any of your familiarity visualization techniques that you've used previously, you can apply to this. All you got to do is look for chord tones from a C and a D, or a C and a B flat. If you're one of these guys who uses a cage system, then you can definitely apply cage to this. It'll work really well. If you just tend to look for chord tones based on the roots, then that will also work. For the beginners then, we'll just take some pretty basic chord shapes. We'll just use some bar chords. There's a C, which looks like this. And then there's a D. If we shift this shape up 2 frets, this would be a D. So what you can do is use these chord shapes to visualize safe notes in this area of the fretboard for all of the A Dorian section. And then for the E7 altered chord, it's very simple. All we're going to do is take this C chord here and a B flat, which is 2 frets lower. So to give you a quick run through, nothing too involved, of something that we might do if we were using this to visualize, you might play some kind of lick that used part of the C and part of the D over the A Dorian. Just 6-7 notes that all came from the C and the D triads. And you'd continue in that type of vein for the next 2 bars. And then when your E7 altered chord comes along, you're going to play something based on this C triad, maybe like, and moving down to the B flat triad. Now hopefully as you play about with this, it will get a little bit less forced. You'll start to hear little melodies that wind between these two chords. Mixing up the chord tones as much as possible is the key. What you don't want is a really specific sounding C major line and then a really specific D major triad outlined. You want to try and mix the chord tones together so the process is a little bit less transparent. So as always, head over to bondtuition.co.uk, head to the free lessons section, and you'll find this backing track so you can do some jamming over it. Also, you should head to my Facebook page. That's facebook.com/bondguitartuition, because I am uploading very regular tips related to harmonic stuff, technique stuff, all sorts of stuff. So it's worth heading over there and liking that page as well. Have a good week, guys, and I'll see you all next week.